Okay, so this is what we're talking about. This time we're talking about the Enchantress herself, right? And this is one of the final pieces. So the staff is actually attached to her, so this whole thing can print as one piece. And if you have a large enough resin printer, I have a Saturn S, and it came out perfect like this. And I'll go a little over the supports I used, but it's nothing really special. Just a couple of things you have to keep an eye out for. Other than that, she prints like a dream. So I do not have a time lapse for the entire sculpt. That would take forever anyway. But I have the important parts. I have the setup and how I join the pieces. So that'll be good to see pretty much how I did her. So let's switch over to that. Okay, so here's the time lapse, and it's going by real quick, but you'll be able to get the gist. And you can see pretty much how I like to set things up. I roughly box model the figure into place and then join all the pieces once I'm happy with everything. And this technique works really well for me because it allows me to break down the figure in kind of two stages. One, I put the major muscle groups and everything in place, and I'm really able to keep an eye on the proportions of the figure, right? Make sure everything's the right size and shape and everything fits in. A lot of times I have to readjust, and it just makes it so much easier. And then, once I get everything in place, I join it all together bit by bit and smooth it out, and I can work on the fine details, right? I can get everything to just flow together really, really well. Um, and what you see here is basically, what I said. I'm just getting in the major muscle groups. And I'm not really worrying. It's kind of like the muscles without the skin, right? I will add in the skin, so to speak, later. I'll smooth it out. I will, use the clay brush or whatever to fill in spots that aren't quite filled. And even here, you can see this is not the original position of the Enchantress. Originally, I was going to do a whole other one, and I just turned out I didn't like it. Um, I just hit the brakes and redid everything. And it was just so easy to do this way. Now, if you like to do the other way where, you just put in a shape and then you draw that shape out and you remesh it or you add resolution to that, that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. Oh, remember in the staff, I said I couldn't remember how I did this part? Well, here it is. Turns out I box modeled from a box, from a cube, and I just subsurfed it. I couldn't figure it out. And here are the hands. This is another good technique that works really well for me. I box model the hands. It allows me to get the proportions of each finger right. It allows me to get the size and length of the fingers down. And then I smooth out finger one at a time and join them one at a time. It just works out really well for me. Perhaps later I will do a video on just the technique I use for the hands because I think it's so helpful. It works so well that I think some other people might it might help them. So maybe I'll do that too. Um, and you can just see me going through it. And I'll just let this go for a little bit, and I'll jump in if I have anything else to say. You can even see here in the hand, this was a whole different position that I had for that hand, and I didn't like that. It just seemed too cheesecakey, Obviously, she's a little cheesecake, but it just seemed too much. Um, so I wanted to give the figure a little more story. You know, that's why I started adding, when I started adding the demon heads to me, a story popped into my mind about who she was and what she did and what was really going on here. You know, I imagined someone from a village comes to her and says they're being tortured by this demon, and she comes in and she just wrecks them, and uses their heads on her altar or something nonsense like that, and it just gave the thing a whole lot more purpose to me in my head. Um, Here you can see I've almost got all the figure joined together, just little bits. And you see here I changed it around. I hadn't imagined boots when I first started this out, and she's definitely got boots. I really like the boots. I don't know how practical they would actually be in real life. Maybe I'll do a little segment on her boots because there's a lot of fun detail in there, and there's a few interesting things I learned the hard way from the boots too. Um, so maybe I'll go over those separately as well. Um, I have a little bit of the face coming up soon, I think. Let's see. Yeah, it should be real soon. And unfortunately for me, I'm not one of those guys who, things start out beautiful, they get beautiful, and then they get even more beautiful as you go along, and then they're super perfect. Me, sometimes I got to fumble around a little bit. I like to be able to adjust proportions and refigure things until they're just perfect. So unfortunately, where this stops is not perfect. But I like the way she came out in the end, and that's really the important bit. But you can still see some of how I did it. You know, how I just added in the details of the face. And I would do a separate video on that, but there are so many videos on how to sculpt the human head. And I don't know if I need to add to that noise. But, if anybody's interested, let me know. Say something in the comments, and, if there's enough interest, I'll be glad to do it. Okay, and from that, we ended up with this. Okay, and I will do another piece on the boots and some of the detail in there. Maybe I'll also do I'll go over the issues I had with the chain on a curve. I've seen a few videos on that, and it just didn't work for me the way it did for them. And I'll talk about why. And then I'll do something a little bit on my hand. And don't forget, she's going to be on Kickstarter beginning April. So make sure you get over there and check it out. And in the meantime, there is a pre-launch page. I'll put the link for that in the video description.